Everyone has goals, but here's the uncomfortable truth. If goals alone were enough, everyone would be successful. We'd all have six-pack abs, financial freedom, thriving businesses, and the life we've always dreamed of. The reality is that goals don't create success. Think about it. Successful people and unsuccessful people often have the exact same goals. Every January, millions of people make New Year's resolutions to lose weight, get fit, save money, read more books, or build better habits. Two people join the same gym on January 1st. They have the same fitness goal. They follow the same workout plan. They even start with the same level of motivation. Fast forward just a few weeks, one person has already quit. The other hasn't missed a single workout. The goal was identical, so why did one succeed while the other failed? The answer is habits, but probably not in the way you've been taught. Most people believe success comes from having more discipline, more willpower, or more motivation. They think if they force themselves long enough, eventually success will become automatic. That's exactly why most people never achieve lasting change. Highly successful people aren't constantly fighting themselves. They're simply following a different strategy. They understand three powerful principles about habit formation that most people never learn. The first principle is this: they don't focus on building habits, they focus on building identity. Most people begin with the outcome. They say, I want to lose weight. I want to save more money. I want to become productive. Those goals are important because they give you direction. But they're only the surface layer. Go one level deeper, and you'll find the process. This includes workout routines, productivity systems, budgeting methods, habit trackers, and daily schedules. Processes matter, but the people who consistently succeed start even deeper. They start with identity. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? They ask, who do I want to become? That simple shift changes everything. Here's an example. Imagine two people are trying to quit smoking. Someone offers each of them a cigarette. The first person replies, no thanks, I'm trying to quit smoking. The second person responds, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. The difference seems small, but psychologically it's enormous. The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who's struggling to quit. Every refusal feels like a battle against their own identity. The second person has already changed the story they believe about themselves. They don't see themselves as someone who smokes anymore. They're simply behaving in a way that matches who they believe they are. That's the difference between changing your behavior and changing your identity. Here's the important lesson. You can never outperform your self-image for very long. Eventually, your habits will always return to the identity you believe is true. So how do you change your identity? Not with positive affirmations, not with motivational quotes, not even with vision boards. You change it by collecting evidence. Every action you take becomes proof of the person you're becoming. Read one page of a book. That's evidence that you're a reader. Complete one workout. That's evidence that you're someone who exercises consistently. Resist one unhealthy craving. That's evidence that you're a person with self-control. Save $10 instead of spending it. That's evidence that you're becoming financially responsible. Every small action is another vote for your future identity. You don't need to reinvent yourself overnight. You simply need to collect enough small wins that your new identity becomes believable. First, decide who you want to become. Then, prove it to yourself every single day through small, consistent actions. The second principle is just as powerful. Successful people don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems. There's a famous quote that perfectly explains this idea. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. But what exactly is a system? A system is simply designing your environment so that the right choice becomes the easiest choice. Imagine placing your vitamins beside your toothbrush. Every morning when you brush your teeth, taking your vitamins becomes almost automatic. Very little willpower is required. Or imagine leaving a book on your pillow instead of your phone. Now reading before bed becomes the default option. Your environment quietly guides your behavior without requiring constant self-control. This is how highly productive people build lasting habits. They don't depend on motivation. They remove friction. They make good habits obvious, easy, and automatic. Most people think they have a discipline problem. In reality, they have a systems problem. They wait until they feel motivated before taking action. The problem is that motivation is temporary. Some mornings you'll wake up feeling unstoppable. Other days you'll feel tired, distracted, or overwhelmed. Motivation comes and goes. Think of it like a phone battery. Every difficult decision drains a little more energy. By the end of a long, stressful day, there's often nothing left. And when motivation disappears, your systems are what keep you moving forward. That's why successful people don't build lives that depend on motivation. They build systems that continue working even when motivation is gone. The people who succeed don't possess extraordinary willpower. They aren't constantly forcing themselves to make the right decisions. Instead, they've designed their lives so the right decision is already the easiest one to make. That's the real secret. Success is rarely about having more discipline. It's about building better systems. A third principle is just as important. Successful people don't quit just because they can't see immediate results. They understand that progress is often invisible before it becomes obvious. If you've ever started exercising, learning a new skill, or building a business, you've probably experienced this feeling. You put in the work, you stay consistent, you expect results, but nothing seems to happen. Your body doesn't look different. Your business isn't growing. Your habits don't seem to be paying off. This stage has a name. It's called the Valley of Disappointment, and it's where most people give up, not because their habits aren't working, but because they can't yet see the results. Think of an ice cube sitting in a cold room. The temperature is -5 degrees. Then it rises to -4. Nothing changes. -3. Still nothing. -2. -1. It still looks exactly the same. Then the temperature reaches 0 degrees. Suddenly, the ice begins to melt. To someone watching only at that final moment, it looks like the change happened instantly, but that's not true. The melting point was made possible by every degree of warming that came before it. Progress was happening all along. It just wasn't visible. The same principle applies to your habits. Every workout, every chapter you read, every healthy meal, every dollar you save, every day you choose consistency over comfort. None of those actions seem dramatic on their own, but together they slowly move you toward your own breakthrough. Most people quit one step before reaching their melting point. They mistake invisible progress for failure. But successful people know that consistency always comes before visible results. Another powerful way to understand this is through the idea of 1% improvement. Imagine becoming just 1% better every day. 1% doesn't sound impressive. In fact, it feels almost meaningless. But small improvements compound over time. If you improve by just 1% every single day for an entire year, you won't be slightly better. You'll be approximately 37 times better than where you started. Now imagine the opposite. What if you become just 1% worse every day? Skip one workout, delay one important task, make one poor decision after another. Individually, those choices seem harmless, but over time, they compound in the opposite direction. By the end of the year, you've drifted far away from the person you wanted to become. That's why habits are often described as the compound interest of self-improvement. Just as money grows through compound interest, your daily habits quietly multiply over time. The results may be invisible at first, but eventually, they become impossible to ignore. Once you truly understand this, you stop judging yourself after only a few days or weeks. You realize the habit isn't failing. You're simply still warming the ice. Let's quickly summarize what we've learned so far. Successful people focus on identity before outcomes. They build systems instead of depending on motivation. And they continue showing up long before the results become visible. They understand that lasting success belongs to those who keep going through the valley of disappointment. But recognizing these principles is only the beginning. Knowing why habits matter isn't enough. To build habits that actually last, you need to understand how habits are formed in the first place. Whether it's exercising, reading, checking social media, or eating junk food, every habit follows the exact same pattern. According to behavioral psychology, every habit is built on a four-step loop: cue, craving, response, reward. Once you understand this loop, you'll begin to notice it everywhere. Let's break it down. Every habit starts with a cue. A cue is simply a trigger that tells your brain to pay attention. Imagine walking down the street and seeing someone smoking. That's the cue. Next comes the craving. Notice that you're not craving the cigarette itself. You're craving what the cigarette promises. Perhaps it's relaxation, stress relief, comfort, or simply a temporary escape. The craving creates the desire to act. That leads to the third step, the response. You reach into your pocket, pull out your own cigarette, and light it. Finally comes the reward. This is the moment your brain evaluates the experience. Without you realizing it, your brain asks a simple question. Was this rewarding enough to repeat? If the answer is yes, the habit becomes slightly stronger. If the answer is no, the habit gradually weakens. This is one of the most important ideas in habit formation. Your brain isn't attached to habits, it's attached to rewards. Whenever a behavior delivers quick pleasure, quick comfort, quick relief, or a quick burst of dopamine, your brain remembers it and encourages you to repeat it. That's exactly why bad habits are so difficult to break. And it's also why good habits are so difficult to build. The timing of the reward is completely different. Bad habits pay you immediately. Eat junk food and you enjoy the taste right away. Scroll through social media and your brain receives instant entertainment. Skip today's workout and you immediately avoid discomfort. The reward comes first. The consequences come later. Good habits work in exactly the opposite direction. Exercise is uncomfortable today, but improves your health months from now. Saving money feels like sacrifice today, but creates financial freedom years later. Reading a few pages tonight doesn't seem life-changing, but over time it transforms the way you think. The cost comes first. The reward arrives later. And because the human brain naturally prefers immediate rewards over delayed ones, building good habits requires understanding how to work with your psychology instead of fighting against it. So what's the solution? You don't try to fight your habits. You redesign the habit loop itself. Every lasting habit follows the same four principles. First, make the cue obvious. Second, make the craving attractive. Third, make the response easy. And fourth, make the reward satisfying. Master these four steps, and building good habits becomes dramatically easier. Let's look at each one. The first step is to make the cue obvious. Every habit begins with a trigger. If the trigger isn't there, the habit never starts. Most people think they have a discipline problem. In reality, they have an environment problem. Your brain is constantly responding to whatever is around you. If your phone is sitting on your desk, you'll probably pick it up without thinking. If cookies are sitting on the kitchen counter, you'll eventually eat one. If your television remote is always within reach, watching TV becomes effortless. You're not lacking willpower. You're simply responding to the cues your environment provides. That's why one of the fastest ways to build better habits is to redesign your surroundings. Make your good habits impossible to ignore. If you want to read more books, place a book on your pillow every morning. When you get into bed at night, reading becomes the obvious next step. If you want to drink more water, keep a water bottle on your desk, in your car, or beside your bed. If you want to practice guitar, leave it on a stand where you can see it instead of hiding it in a closet. Your environment should constantly remind you of the person you're trying to become. When you control your environment, you control your cues. But cues aren't only physical objects. They can also be routines you already perform every single day. This brings us to one of the most effective habit-building techniques ever discovered. It's called habit stacking. Habit stacking simply means attaching a new habit to one that's already automatic. Instead of trying to remember a completely new routine, you use an existing habit as the trigger. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I'll meditate for 2 minutes. After I brush my teeth, I'll do 10 push-ups. After I finish dinner, I'll read 1 page of a book. Your existing habits become reminders for your future habits. Instead of depending on motivation, You create a reliable system that tells your brain exactly when to begin. The second step is to make the craving attractive. People don't act because something is good for them. They act because they want the feeling that behavior promises. We don't crave the workout. We crave feeling healthy and confident. We don't crave saving money. We crave financial freedom. We don't crave reading books. We crave becoming smarter and more knowledgeable. Unfortunately, many good habits feel boring at first. That's one reason people abandon them so quickly. The solution is to make the habit emotionally appealing. One simple way to do that is by changing the language you use. Instead of saying, "I have to exercise today," say, "I get to become someone who takes care of their body." Instead of saying, "I have to study," say, "I'm becoming someone who never stops learning." Those small changes reinforce the identity you're building. Another powerful strategy is called temptation bundling. This means combining something you need to do with something you already enjoy. Only watch your favorite TV series while walking on the treadmill. Only listen to your favorite podcast while cleaning the house. Only enjoy your favorite playlist while studying or working. Now the enjoyable activity pulls you toward the productive one. Instead of resisting the habit, you begin looking forward to it. The third step is to make the response easy. This is where most people get stuck. The response is the actual behavior. It's the workout, the reading, the writing, the studying. If that action feels difficult, your brain will naturally postpone it. If it feels easy, you'll begin almost automatically. Your goal is simple: reduce friction for good habits, increase friction for bad habits. Want to exercise before work? Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Pack your gym bag before you go to bed. Remove every excuse before morning arrives. Want to eat healthier? Prepare healthy meals in advance. Keep fruit where you can easily see it. Store unhealthy snacks somewhere inconvenient. Or better yet, don't buy them at all. Want to spend less time on social media? Delete distracting apps. Turn off notifications. Log out after every session. Move the apps to another screen. Create enough friction that mindless scrolling becomes inconvenient. Your environment should make good decisions effortless and bad decisions difficult. There's one more strategy that makes this even more effective. It's called the 2-minute rule. Every new habit should begin with a version that takes less than 2 minutes. Don't focus on reading an entire chapter. Focus on reading 1 page. Don't commit to running 5 miles. Commit to putting on your running shoes. Don't promise yourself an hour-long workout. Promise yourself that you'll simply walk into the gym. Why does this work? Because starting is almost always the hardest part. Once you've begun, continuing becomes much easier. A habit doesn't have to be impressive to be effective. It simply has to begin. Finally, we arrive at the fourth step. Make the reward satisfying. This is the step that determines whether your brain wants to repeat the behavior tomorrow. Remember, your brain is constantly asking one question: was that worth doing again? If the answer is yes, the habit grows stronger. If the answer is no, the habit slowly disappears. This is why so many bad habits become addictive. They reward you immediately. But you can use that same psychology to build good habits. Celebrate small wins. Track your progress. Cross each completed day off on a calendar. Use a habit tracker. Watch your streak grow. Every check mark, every completed workout, every page read, and every dollar saved becomes immediate evidence that you're making progress. Those small rewards keep your brain engaged long enough for the long-term rewards to arrive. Eventually, the habit itself becomes the reward. The person who once struggled to exercise begins enjoying movement. The person who hated reading begins looking forward to learning. The person who forced themselves to save money begins enjoying the feeling of financial security. That's when a habit stops feeling like work. It becomes part of who you are. And once your habits become part of your identity, success is no longer something you chase. It's simply the natural result of the person you've become. Your brain isn't designed to repeat what benefits you in the future. It's designed to repeat what feels rewarding right now. That's why bad habits are so difficult to break. They provide immediate gratification. Eat junk food and you instantly enjoy the taste. Scroll through social media, and your brain gets an immediate burst of entertainment. Procrastinate on an important task, and you experience instant relief from stress. The reward comes first. The consequences come later. Good habits work the opposite way. Exercise today, and you'll probably feel tired before you feel stronger. Save money today, and you won't experience the financial freedom until much later. Read 10 pages today, and you won't notice yourself becoming smarter overnight. The effort comes first. The reward arrives weeks, months, or even years later. And that's exactly why your brain struggles to stay committed. So how do you solve this problem? You bring the reward closer. Make good habits satisfying immediately. One of the easiest ways to do this is by tracking your progress. Use a habit tracker. Mark an X on your calendar every day you complete the habit. Check off each workout. Record every page you read. Log every dollar you save. These small victories create an immediate sense of accomplishment. Even though the long-term reward hasn't arrived yet, your brain receives proof that you're making progress. Over time, that growing streak becomes surprisingly motivating. The longer your streak becomes, the less willing you are to break it. Now let's look at the opposite side. If you want to eliminate a bad habit, you need to make it immediately unpleasant. Most bad habits survive because they're comfortable. Remove that comfort and the habit begins to lose its power. Add accountability. Ask someone to check your progress. Create a financial consequence. Promise to donate money every time you break your commitment. Make your goal public so other people know what you're trying to achieve. Or create a habit contract that clearly defines the consequences of failing to follow through. The more embarrassing, the more expensive, or the more inconvenient a bad habit becomes, the less attractive it feels. Remember, your brain naturally avoids immediate pain just as strongly as it seeks immediate pleasure. There's one more rule that's incredibly simple but remarkably powerful. Never miss twice. Everyone has bad days. Everyone gets sick. Everyone becomes busy. Missing one workout isn't failure. Skipping one day of reading isn't failure. Eating one unhealthy meal isn't failure. Those are simply mistakes. But missing the habit twice in a row is dangerous. Why? Because the second missed day begins creating a new pattern. Habits aren't built by one perfect decision. They're built through repetition. The same is true for bad habits. One missed day is an exception. 2 missed days can become the beginning of a new routine. Whenever life gets in the way, focus on one goal above everything else. Get back on track as quickly as possible. Never let one mistake become 2. So let's bring everything together. If you want to build habits that actually last, remember these 4 principles. Make the cue obvious. Make the craving attractive. Make the response easy. And make the reward satisfying. These 4 simple ideas form the foundation of nearly every successful habit you'll ever build. But here's a question that almost nobody asks. Once you've built a habit, how do you keep it? Many people ask, how long does it take to form a habit? 21 days, 30 days, 66 days. The truth is, there isn't one magic number. A habit becomes automatic through repetition. The more often you repeat a behavior, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. Consistency matters far more than counting days. Starting a habit is exciting. Maintaining it is where the real challenge begins, because eventually, every habit becomes boring. The excitement fades, the novelty disappears, and this is the point where most people quit. Not because the habit is difficult, but because it no longer feels exciting. The people who succeed understand that boredom is part of the process. They don't chase excitement, they chase consistency. One strategy that helps enormously is staying inside what's known as the Goldilocks zone. This means keeping your habits challenging enough to stay interesting, but not so difficult that they become overwhelming. If the habit is too easy, you'll lose interest. If it's too hard, you'll give up. The sweet spot lies somewhere in between. It's where you're challenged, but still capable of succeeding. Finally, there's one habit that quietly strengthens every other habit you build. Do a weekly review. Set aside a few minutes every week and ask yourself a few simple questions. What's working? What's not working? What's becoming easier? What obstacles keep showing up? And what small adjustment can I make next week? Your life is constantly changing. Your schedule changes, your responsibilities change, your priorities change. If your habits never adapt, they'll eventually stop serving you. Small adjustments made consistently are what keep great habits alive for years. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is continuous improvement. Because in the end, success isn't built through one life-changing decision. It's built through hundreds of small decisions repeated every single day. And that's the real power of habits. If you can change your habits, you can change your identity. If you can change your identity, you can change your future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this book summary and want to learn more about psychology, productivity, self-discipline, success, and personal development, be sure to watch the next video on your screen. I've summarized many of the world's best self-improvement books, and each one contains practical lessons you can start applying today.